see. I'm going to explain why I think we should consider him a political thinker. I'm going to talk a little bit about his social communitarianism. Then enter covenant, which is a central concept that is taught. Then the distinction between the covenant and contract, which is central to these ideas. Two types of covenants, one social and one political. And a little bit about the social covenants, the volatile community, social function of civil society. Then the challenge of political covenant, which is much more complicated and given the social fragmentation. Then less political covenants of diversity, and we'll see if an answer. And then I'll present some concluding remarks. So, why should we think about Lord's Acts, Lord Rabbi's Acts and political thinking? Well, he dedicated much thought to political and social issues, but his views are not usually concerned with immediate political disputes. They are not aligned with a particular political party. He focuses on two issues: the importance of social communitarianism and the importance of the idea of covenant. The second political thinking is preoccupied with major issues of contemporary politics, not with immediate political events. So it's not that kind of politics. Okay, so his get-going point, right, is the importance of demonstrating the very disciplined social sciences. He cites a lot of social sciences research, the importance of the connection and the presence of loneliness, and then so problems of hyper-individualism. Then the nature of working in the decline of any human partnership requires a long-term investment in a measure of sacrifice. And as this will see, I'm going to quote him a lot because it's not really going to attribute to Rabbi the idea of analyzing him as a political thought. I'm going to quote him quite a bit to make sure that I'm attributing to him his own opinion rather than my interpretation. So, a marriage in which one or both partners and selfishly is unlikely to less, the parent indifferent to the needs of his or her child, if there is a child, a community in which the members are not willing to bear the share of the burden of keeping it going, a group of riders will cease to exist, a nation without a sense of collective identity and responsibility will split apart. Now, the social and political background that created the social structure that interest Lord's Acts are gone, right? So they're the past. And Lord's Acts understands this very, very well. It provides sociologists describe the role of the Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft from the face-to-face relationships that predominate in small communities to the anonymous encounters of strangers that make up much of city life. So it does not look back with unspreading sentimentalism, but it yes, how such social structures can be maintained and in what shape and manner. And in a brief kind of important comment, he rules out the social value position of religious values via the usage of the force of the law in Western societies. The right Catholic may believe that abortion is murder, a Jew or Muslim who takes a child marriage is forbidden, and this provision is not even life within our respective communities of faith. But we cannot seek to have them imposed by force of law on those who are not members of our community. There are other groups who seriously disagree and make a compelling case for the right to construct a life along different lines. So he rules out the imposition of religious values and conduct via the force of the law, but he does not rule out other policies of collective identity, including of religious sources and connotations. However, given that valuable communality is a highly valuable human interest, the building, maintaining, and funding of meaningful communities becomes a mission of individuals in civil society, not so much that of the state. I'll return to that point. Entering the covenant, which is kind of the solution. So covenant is neither an alliance or of interest, nor to speaking an emotional state. Instead, it is a bond of identity. As if you say, this is a part of who I am, and continues, the covenant binds in difficult times. This is because the covenant is not predicated on interest, but instead on loyalty, fidelity, holding together even when things seem to be driving you apart. He writes beautifully. So. And finally, a covenant is maintained by an internalized sense of solidarity, kinship, loyalty, obligation, responsibility, and reciprocity. And covenant cannot be taken for granted and must be nurtured by ritual and collective ceremony. This is all from the politics of hope. So, covenant versus contract. The Lord's Acts is careful to claim that covenant is different than the contract. Contract, according to him, is two or more individuals each pursuing their own interests, come together to make an exchange for mutual benefit. That's contract. So the commercial contract that creates the market, and the social contract that creates the state. Both that attempts to create a sharp distinction between a covenant and a contract. Covenant is an outcome of a bond of identity, and arises out of loyalty to a partnership or a community, while a contract is a formal advancement of interests. So these are two very different concepts. So there are two kinds of covenants. This is a little bit of my interpretation, but I think it can be grounded in explicit writings of Lord Sachs. So the social covenant is easier to understand. It's a social phenomenon. It's very similar, if not identical, to a regular structure of society in any Western society. Very similar, identical to freedom of association. There are present families, communities, religious associations, and so on. What is different is that in Lord Sachs' vision, or the covenant idea, the motivation for each individual participating in this field of conduct is Sachs' form of identity. This motivational factor, according to Lord Sachs, would strengthen the stability and vitality of such partnerships and associations, curing the social ills that he identified and mentioned before. The political covenant is different, as it means a bond of identity shared by all citizens of the country and nurtured by the government. So these are completely two different things. So given that viable communality is a highly valuable human interest, the building, maintaining, and funding of communities, religious but not only, becomes an important mission of individual in the civil society. This is a localized mission, not the state, given fragmentation of modern democracies. That view of the social covenant fits well with the liberal view of society, as it does not introduce change in the formal legal structure of a liberal society. Individuals are free to join, create, maintain association groups, and to exit them. And while the motivation that indicates is a covenant-based communitarianism, it is not based on acts of the government. It depends on the approach, motivation, and decision of each different individual. Lord Sachs connects the importance of covenant-based partnership and organization to the well-known argument by scholars of civil society. The most famous one is the field that Sachs cites quite often, and that such association and organization is necessary for the functioning of a stable democracy, as they create habits of the heart in which individuals learn how to self-govern themselves, establishing, managing, and funding such associations, and creating important associations in between the government and the individuals, preventing a situation in which individuals are faced with the government with no intermediate organization. So he writes, again, beautifully, a free society equals virtues of what to commit himself termed habits of the heart. Not that these exist in a vacuum. They are born and sustained institutions. The family, the congregation, the neighborhood, the voluntary association, shape of individuality and moral substance to our sociability. Interestingly, Lord Sachs seems to classify religion in this category of partnerships standing separated from the government. Religion in America, he writes, was regarded as one of the main guardians of freedom. Far from being weakened by the separation of church and state, religion was strengthened by it. The political covenant is much more complex. So it means that bonds of identity shared by all the citizens of the country and nurtured by the government. This kind of political covenant encounters the immediate challenge or problem of the breakdown of religious, ethical, ideological, and ethnic homogeneity in any Western society, not a society of sufficient size. We live in an era of political polarization, a strong ideological differences, not in an era of social cohesiveness. Lord Sachs understands very well this empirical observation. As he writes, we can no longer build national identity on religion or ethnicity or culture. But he still insists that a covenant-based politics is possible. As he writes, covenantal politics is about with the people, bound by a sense of shared belonging and collective responsibility. So the question is, can political covenants, right, remember the distinction between political and social covenants, survive with diversity? And Lord Sachs has a nuanced view of this. So he writes as follows: nations are enriched by diversity, and integrated diversity coexist with a shared national identity. By being what we uniquely are, we contribute to society what only we can give. That is a way of being Christian, or Hindu, or Muslim, or Jewish, or being proud to be English. Without patriotism, a cohesive sense of belonging and identity is impossible. But patriotism belongs to civil society, to the moral community whose shared values we live by as citizens. If there is no such thing as a national moral community, if civil society atrophies and dies, while all that is left are the competitive arenas of the market and the state, then liberal democracy is in danger. So is there a political institutional translation? On the side, to Zach's covenant ideas. So that's right. It needs communities where individuals can feel that their values are protected and can be handed on to their children. It needs an overarching sense of national community in which different groups are participants in a shared pursuit of the common good. This is from the lecture. This view seems to sit well with what is described above as two different kinds of covenants. A localized one, which is still dependent on fixed shared values. The second is rooted in acknowledging the importance of a shared status framework. In rights of communities needs two kinds of religious strength. One to preserve our own distinct traditions, the other to bring them to an enlarged sense of the common good. So what kind of political arrangement or constitutional design can serve this vision? For the local social covenant, there are two options, quite simple. The first is to leave the building, maintaining and funding of such communities to the initiative of individuals. The second option is that the government will take an active role in establishing, maintaining and funding of such associations in an even-handed or not preferentialist manner, similar to the way England funds state schools. In the political institution, that's much more complicated. So, for the overarching political covenant, there are, again, two options. One is mere constitutional principles similar to Habermas' constitutional patriotism. This is an option that Zach's, as best as I can understand him, rejects. And the second option is substantive covenant, the result of conversation among different groups in a given society. This can be a federalist or unitary framework. That's the conversation with Daniel Lazar. This option faces the problem of the diversity of core populations of large democratic countries. Here, a covenant can become a mere majoritarian regime, disconnected from Zach's bonds of identity that are required for a covenant-based society. So a shared communitarian political identity might collide with the idea of the covenant, including remarks. The Lord Zach advocates social communitarianism similar to Michael Watts, Sandel, and others. He also advocates the idea of a covenant, connection made via bonds of identity. Daniel Lazar conceptualized that as a consent-based kinship. As long as communitarian ideas that are covenant-based are localized, this thought is convincing and important. Once it becomes status or political, it encounters the difficulty of the deep diversity of contemporary societies. And that one shared identity is no longer to be found, and the consent-based covenant is hard to establish. While there are certain institutional arrangements that can overcome this problem of deep diversity in the context of a covenant-based society that is also communitarian, such as Lazar's federalist suggestion, it is arguably the spirit of Zach's insistence on the consent aspect of the idea of the covenant to keep the communitarian aspect localized while maintaining the shared status framework. Thank you very much.